everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for today's special topic webinar, Tips for Making the Most of Your Medical Appointments, presented by NeedyMed's partner, the Lupus Foundation of America. My name is Carla. I'm the Director of User Engagement at NeedyMeds, and before we get started, I'll offer just a few tips so you can make the most out of the presentation. For example, if you do have questions, you can feel free to type them in at any time into that questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. Just know we do reserve answering questions until the end of the presentation. If we don't have the time to answer your specific question, we will follow up with you by email, but of course, we will also provide the contact information for both the Lupus Foundation of America and NeedyMeds at the end. The heads up also that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the NeedyMeds YouTube channel. And you can find, as you saw on one of the screens a couple of slides ago, we did upload both of our PowerPoint slide decks and other reading materials we thought you'd be interested in that handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. So for those of you that are not familiar, I'd like to just get started with what is NeedyMeds. We are a national nonprofit founded more than 2 decades ago by a retired family physician, Dr. Rich Sagel, and his friend, Libby Overly, who was a medical social worker. What you're looking at on our screen is our mission statement, but simply put, NeedyMeds connects people to programs that help them afford their healthcare expenses. And we do that free and anonymously through our website, needymeds.org, and helpline. What you're looking at now is a screenshot of the homepage of our website. And I like to put that up because really our website is the face of our organization, and it also gives me an opportunity to point out just a few resources, such as if you are looking for healthcare cost savings programs, you'll go ahead and begin your search under the, you guessed it, Healthcare Savings tab. Right next to that, you'll find the Education tab. And that's where you can sign up for our webinars, sign up for monthly newsletters, or order brochures and drug discount cards, for example. I mentioned that today's webinar is being recorded, and you will be able to find that recording on our YouTube channel. And there's a link to that on the top right hand of our homepage with the rest of the social media icons. It's the third one from the left. And I also will point out, as you saw that little red box just popped up on the bottom right-hand side on that calendar of events, that's because you can also find upcoming webinars there, as well as in addition to under that Education tab. So let's get started with why everybody's here, which is for today's presentation about how to make the most of your medical appointments. As you saw a few slides ago, an important part of our mission is education, and we define that really in 2 ways. One, by educating people about NeedyMeds and the resources we offer, but also by sharing with them other resources and expert advice on how to stay healthy and feel empowered through their healthcare journey, which is why we are so pleased to have our guest from the Lupus Foundation of America here with us today, Ashley Holden. So first, let me tell you just a little bit about the Lupus Foundation of America. They have made pioneering contributions toward ending the brutal impact of lupus, which is a misunderstood and unpredictable disease. The Lupus Foundation of America's mission is to improve the quality of life for all people affected by lupus through programs of research, education, support, and advocacy. Their efforts stimulated advances in lupus research that are providing insight into the underlying causes of lupus and its progression, while creating unprecedented opportunities to expand the future knowledge base for lupus. So now let me tell you a little bit about our guest. My friend and colleague Holden is a health education specialist at the Lupus Foundation of America's national office. Ashley is a nationally certified health education specialist from the National Commission for Health Education Credentialing. She also has a Bachelor of Science degree in Public and Community Health, a Master's of Education in Health Education, and over a decade of experience working in community health and the health insurance industry combined. Now, as you heard, the Lupus Foundation, of course, its name, focuses on those living with or caring for someone with lupus. But what Ashley is going to focus on today is sharing her expertise that really is applicable to all of us, not only those living with lupus. She's going to explain how to prepare for your next healthcare appointments because it turns out the more prepared you are, the more likely you will be to discuss the issues that are most important to you and even leave with a health plan in place. And as I was doing all of that talking and introducing Haley, I of course forgot to put up her name and her picture. So there it is right there. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic and the screen. And I always say this, hopefully seamlessly, to Ashley. So bear with me while we do that. And while I do that, I will remind everybody, as I said, that if you do have questions, you can go ahead and type them into that questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. And we'll do our best to get to as many as we can. With that, I will pass the mic over to Ashley. Thanks so much, everybody, and enjoy the presentation.
Great, and thank you so much, Carla. I'm so honored to be here today. And if I don't hear anything, I'm going to assume that everybody's able to hear me and able to see my slides before I move.
You are good to go, Ashley. We could hear you clearly and see your slides perfectly. Thanks for checking.
Great, thank you. So as Carla mentioned, we'll be talking about tips for making the most of your medical appointments today. And before we jump in, I did want to talk a little bit about the Lupus Foundation of America, or LFA, on our resources and different ways to get involved. And while today's topic is applicable to any disease or really any doctor's appointment, even if you don't have lupus, tuck some of these things away in your back pocket. It's likely that you may know somebody that has lupus and you didn't know, or you'll come across somebody that mentions that they do have lupus in the future. And so I know Carla mentioned this a bit in the beginning, but I just wanted to really put into perspective our vision and mission statement. And so to put this simply, our goal is to one day end the impact of lupus and its suffering while ensuring that we provide the comprehensive support and programs people with lupus need today. And so the Lupus Foundation of America works to meet the diverse needs of all people with lupus. Our commitment has never wavered in our more than 40 years of service. And today, people with lupus are living longer, healthier lives than ever before. And we really think that we've played a significant role in that achievement. And we remain resolved to doing everything we can to help people with lupus navigate the complexities of the disease while rallying every possible resource to end it forever. So we do have 3 pillars, and so this is what our programs stand upon, and that's our research, care, and support for people affected by lupus, and advocacy. We've redefined lupus research to expand our efforts beyond just funding research grants. We're engaging all stakeholders to identify barriers that stand in the way of progress and setting a course to overcome them. And we do this while providing caring support for people affected by this devastating disease and leading advocacy efforts to bring more funding for research and services. And so I mentioned this. I said, even if you don't have lupus, tuck this away in your back pocket. You likely know somebody with lupus and you don't even know. And the truth is 63% of Americans aged 18 to 34 know little or nothing about lupus. And that low awareness results in late diagnosis, increased morbidity, and increased cost. And so on average, it can take 6 years to receive a lupus diagnosis. And, even if you don't have lupus and maybe you're trying to get diagnosed with another autoimmune disease, it just goes to show the importance of being aware of a disease and being aware of those symptoms and really advocating for yourself. And so I did mention I wanted to talk about some different ways you could get involved and support the fight to end lupus. So we do have our walk to end lupus. We are hoping to be hosting in-person events this year. And so you can visit our website to register for those. We also have Make Your Mark, and that's our community fundraising program. And that's a way to turn an event into a fundraiser for lupus. You can use your passion to raise funds for lupus through an in-person or virtual event. And then we also have Team Make Your Mark, and that's a way for athletes of all different experience levels to combine running, walking, triathlon events with fundraising to support lupus research and education programs. And then finally, your voice is one of the most powerful tools we have. We are the leader in stimulating federal support for lupus. We've generated more than $615 million for lupus research and education in the past 5 years. And every day we fight to ensure the government is responsive to the needs of the Americans living with lupus. And so you can also visit our website to sign up to be an advocate. I'd also like to highlight some more of our programs. We do have our expert series, which is a monthly podcast where our team interviews experts in the field about topics that are important to people with lupus. We have numerous support groups across the country where people with lupus can come together, ask questions, and listen to others. And then we also have Lupus Connect, which is our online support community where members can engage with each other and ask questions. We also have a couple of other programs that I'd like to highlight. And this one I'm really excited to share about. This is brand new this year, and that's called SELF. And SELF stands for Strategies to Embrace Living with Lupus Fearlessly. And so SELF is a free online self-management program to help people with lupus better manage their symptoms, stress, medications, and work better with their healthcare teams. There's really a nice tie-in with today's presentation and this program. And this program is really a virtual coach to help people with lupus build and enhance their skills in the 4 pillars of self-management. Like I said, managing symptoms, managing stress, managing medications, and working with your healthcare team. And no matter how long someone's been living with lupus, SELF can be helpful. It includes tips and tools designed to help people manage their lupus better. We also have Take Charge, and that's our 12-week education email series for people with lupus, including those recently diagnosed. And so when you sign up, you get an email from our health education specialist with tips and resources that can empower you to take charge of your health. And the series covers important topics such as identifying and tracking your symptoms, sticking with your treatment plan, and getting the most out of your doctor's appointments, to name a few. So again, a good relation to today's topic. We do have a National Resource Center on lupus, and that's a one-stop resource for all things lupus, from treatment to living with lupus and coping with a disease. We want to make sure that anybody affected by lupus has access to quality resources that provide emotional support and clear and accurate information in relation to lupus. We also have our certified health education specialist, which is where I fall. We are trained to provide people with lupus, their family members, caregivers with non-medical support, disease education, and helpful resources. Our health educators can help you find trustworthy information to answer your questions about lupus or how to cope with it. We do have bilingual in Spanish health educators. We have 2 of those available as well. And I'm really excited that we're able to do that in both English and Spanish. And to contact a health educator, you can visit lupus.org/health educator and fill out our form to reach out to us. We also have RAY, which is Lupus Research Accelerated by You. And so that is really specific for people with lupus, but it's to help us advance research and help make sure that we're helping researchers with sharing those different experiences with lupus, because lupus affects everyone differently. As I mentioned, we do have support groups. We also have a network of regional offices and chapters that provide support. So again, you can check that out on our website at lupus.org/chapters to see if we have anything available in your area. So now let's jump right in. Now that we've kind of gone over the Lupus Foundation of America, let's jump right into today's topic. And hopefully you find this helpful no matter, what you're visiting the doctor for. And we're going to focus on 5 main areas when it comes to preparing for an appointment. So we're going to be looking at how to manage your expectations, getting organized, how to be proactive, communication, and follow-up. So first, let's talk about how to manage expectations. Perhaps you were recently diagnosed by your primary care provider with an autoimmune disease, or you have something else going on, and maybe they've referred you to a specialist. You know that it's important to see the specialist in a timely manner. Of course, you want to see that doctor quickly because you're hoping to feel better, right? But when you call, you're shocked to learn that you might have to wait weeks before you can get an appointment. So what should you do in the meantime? So, I would recommend that you be understanding. Your first opportunity for a good visit to the doctor comes when you schedule that first appointment. So, as I mentioned, being understanding when you schedule your appointment, it may take a few weeks to get an appointment. The staff understands it's important for you to see the doctor and will help to get you scheduled as soon as possible. Sometimes doctors' offices even keep a running list if they have cancellations, and they'll reach out if they're able to squeeze you in. And to put appointment wait times of weeks or even months into perspective, there's a projected shortage. We might even really be in that shortage at this point of rheumatologists and really other specialists and other types of doctors. So we just really don't have a lot of doctors, and it makes it difficult to get in, especially as a new patient, right? And so I also recommend that not only being patient and understanding that might take some time to get in, but you take the time to talk to the staff about the visit you're scheduling so that they can make sure they schedule enough time and can take care of your concerns during the visit. So if you have urgent concerns, let the staff know. They may be able to work you into the schedule. You just might need to be prepared to wait a little longer in the waiting room, especially if they're squeezing you in to their existing appointments that they have. And when you can, try to make your appointments at least a couple of weeks in advance, or even longer if it's your first visit with a new doctor. This will give you time to prepare for the doctor, and it also allows time for your medical records to be transferred from other care providers. And a lot of times that's really helpful when you're seeing a specialist because it allows them to look at your past lab work and other doctors' notes. You also should keep in mind that you may need multiple appointments if you have a long list of concerns or if your doctor is working to give you a diagnosis. So sometimes you might have to go a few times if that doctor is kind of working to put puzzle pieces together and figure out what's going on. When scheduling appointments, you can keep them on a calendar. I know some of us still prefer the paper. You can also use your phone if you have a smartphone, or your work calendar. I know I personally use my phone calendar, my work calendar, and sometimes I still even like paper appointment cards. And I just like to have it in multiple places, but it's really whatever works best for you. So that way it helps you remember those appointments. And hopefully the doctor's also giving you those reminder calls. But you can also put all of your doctor's contact information in your contact list in your cell phone. You can include their name, specialty, and address. And that way you can access that information no matter where you are. I know sometimes it's really easy. We can look things up on our phone, but depending where you are, it might just be easier to pull it up in your contact list. And then also you might want to consider asking your doctor's office, health insurance provider, or if your doctor is part of a health system, you might want to ask if they have a social worker or care coordinator. And these people can help you arrange and organize specialist appointments and help you prepare for your follow-up appointments or future consultations. And sometimes these also have other names such as like a patient navigator. So sometimes they have different titles, but the idea is to help you follow up with your care and make sure that you stay on top of your appointments. Next is getting organized, and I think this is important probably for us in a lot of different aspects of life, but when talking about medical appointments, you'll want to organize your medical history. So the greatest part of your doctor's understanding of what's happening in your body will be based on your description of your symptoms, so both now and in the past. And while the doctor also needs to examine you and look at your results of current laboratory and imaging tests, your personal history really does give valuable information. So the more organized your medical history is, the easier it will be for your doctor to begin to consider possible reasons for your health complications. You can also keep a binder or folder with copies of your medical records. The binder will keep you organized and keep all of your papers in one place so that you don't have to hunt them down before each of your upcoming appointments. You can keep copies of your visit summaries, a list of your current doctors and current medications in this binder too. I also recommend tracking symptoms. I think this is helpful not only if you're looking for, trying to be diagnosed with something new, or in the process of being diagnosed with something new, or if you already have a current diagnosis, it's helpful to keep track of those symptoms, because I know sometimes when we get in front of the doctor, we tend to forget or we don't remember everything. So you can keep a journal of your symptoms. You can include a timeline and descriptions of the symptoms, including those that have disappeared. We do have a checklist available on our National Resource Center for Lupus to help you keep track. I do have the links there, and I believe one of those is in the handouts for today. And this is just to give you an idea of what they look like. And while these are lupus specific, if you have some other type of disease, you can check with if there's a foundation or organization for that disease. They might have one available, or you could really use these and kind of adapt them to what you need for, whatever you have going on. So you'll also, as I mentioned, want to have an updated list of your medications and supplements. So your doctor needs to know what medications you're taking, including those prescribed by other doctors, and any dietary supplements. So that can be vitamins, minerals, herbs. If you're taking a multivitamin or if you're taking omega-3 or fish oil, you'll want to make sure you're letting the doctor know that as well. So you can create that list, you can write it down. Sometimes they call it a paper bag visit. You can put all those medications in a brown paper bag and take them to the doctor and show them. Or you can use an app to track them as well. Again, it's whatever works best for you and whatever you're going to use to have that list. But again, you'll want to make sure you're including those prescription and non-prescription medications. And like I said, if they ask you to bring them in, it's so they can see the original container and they can understand the dosage you're taking, how often you're taking it, and the refill schedule. Also, if you have prescribed medication or supplements that you're not taking for some reason, whether that be side effects, cost, or some other reason, you should tell the doctor that too. Any side effects you've noticed after taking a medication or product should be reported. And that way, the doctor might be able to adjust medications appropriately if there's a reason you've stopped taking a medication. I also recommend creating a list of questions. I know a lot of times we have these questions swirling around in our head. And again, we get in that room and sometimes we get rushed or flustered and we forget. So if you make a list of those topics and questions you want to discuss, I recommend prioritizing the topics and those questions that you feel are the most important for the doctor to hear about. That way, if you don't get through the whole list, you still have the most important questions and concerns addressed. You'll also want to anticipate what the doctor will ask. And a lot of these questions apply mostly to symptoms. And so that's why symptom tracking is so helpful. But again, you'll want to think ahead about how you would answer them. You can see some of those sample questions listed here, but really, like I said, they do look a lot at symptoms. When do the symptoms start? Is it new? Anything that triggers it? Does it come and go? when's it the worst, and then looking at if it's causing you pain or interfering with your daily routine. It's also important to be proactive prior to your appointment. And so if you have an idea of what's going on and what can be causing that, you should understand that disease or condition before you go into that doctor's appointment. If you have information about the disease, you'll be better prepared for the appointment. And learning as much as you can before the appointment can help you recognize different terms or tests that the doctor may mention. It may also ease anxiety about the diagnosis process. And so depending what type of disease, you might need to see a different type of specialist. And again, that might be a rheumatologist, a dermatologist, cardiologist, a nephrologist, gastroenterologist, pulmonologist, just to name a few. There are a lot of different specialists out there. And so we can use lupus as an example of how we can be informed about a disease. So even just understanding what lupus is and is not is helpful going into a doctor's appointment. Should a primary care doctor suspect lupus and refer someone to a rheumatologist, there might be some anxiety that it could be related to cancer or contagious. And the truth of the matter, lupus is not related to cancer or contagious. It's an autoimmune disease, and it is a chronic disease that's pretty unpredictable. And so it doesn't look the same for everybody. And so, we think about lupus as sometimes if a man is in the process of being diagnosed, they think that they can't get lupus. And so, 90% of people living with lupus are female, and they're usually in the childbearing ages, but it can occur in anyone. So again, it just goes to show it's important to understand that it can occur, that you want to know your chances of maybe having that disease that is suspected. Or you might want to know if you're more likely to have that disease. So for example, for lupus, lupus is 2 to 3 times more prevalent among women of color. So African Americans, Hispanics or Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiians, and other Pacific Islanders. And so that's just to give you an idea of just some things to maybe start looking at if you're in the process of getting a diagnosis of some type of disease. And so as I mentioned, lupus is different for each person. It can range from mild to life-threatening. While it's not curable, there are treatments available. And symptoms of the disease may increase or decrease depending on if you're in a flare or remission. But as you can see from this slide, there's really a wide range of symptoms. And that's why a symptom tracker is really helpful. And so, like I said, even if you're not looking at lupus, a lot of these symptoms can overlap with other autoimmune diseases. And so that's why it's so important to keep track of that, because it really is, I know I use it a lot, but it helps the doctor use those symptoms as a puzzle piece. And so each of those little puzzle pieces come together to give that doctor a big picture. And that big picture can help them rule out certain diseases or may make them lean towards a possibility of, a diagnosis. And so speaking of diagnosis, you want to be familiar with how that disease can be diagnosed that your doctor is looking at. So in lupus, there's no single diagnostic test for lupus, and people are usually surprised to find this out. As I said, the doctor will use a variety of tests to help them see that big picture of what's going on. The doctor is also going to take a look at medical history, including past lab work, because those lab values can change over time. Lab values can change based on the lab you're using. So again, that's why there's such an importance of having your medical records transferred, or even having your own copies in that binder. And so they'll also want to look at your symptoms that you've had in the past. And then for lupus, depending on the type of lupus suspected or organ involvement, they may also do biopsies of the skin or the kidney. So lupus is a disease that's known for being difficult to diagnose because the symptoms are different from person to person. They can come and go, and they mimic symptoms of so many other diseases, such as rheumatoid arthritis, blood disorders, fibromyalgia, diabetes, thyroid problems, Lyme disease, and a number of other heart, lung, muscle, and bone diseases. So it can, as I mentioned in the beginning, sometimes take several years for a person to receive an official diagnosis. And so in the example of lupus, the diagnosis process can be complex, and being familiar with a disease, even again, if it's not lupus, can help you ease your anxieties and help the process. So by understanding that, it helps you understand that it might require some time to get that diagnosis. It might require multiple medical visits, and that it's important to be doing these follow-ups and these tests because every little piece is really essential for that diagnosis process. You may also want to research about possible treatments so that you can have questions prepared ahead of time about that medication. So it finally comes time for that doctor's visit, and communication's key. And I think really communication's key in so many aspects of life, right? But in terms of a doctor's visit, during the visit, first and foremost, you've spent so much time preparing for this visit. So remember to bring your medical history, your prescription history, your list, or remember to use it in your phone, or remember to pull it out if that's where you have it, your symptom tracker, and your list of questions. Again, you work so hard to prepare those for your appointment. And all this information will give your doctor a clearer picture of what's happening with you. To ensure the best management of your disease, it's essential to create a partnership with your healthcare team. That definitely includes clear communication. So be sure to tell your physician about any changes in your symptoms, and that can help with your evaluation and when ordering tests to ensure that your doctor has the best understanding of your current health. Be sure to tell your doctor everything you're doing that could affect your health. Remember, your appointment is confidential. So are you taking any over-the-counter medications for a different condition? Are you on a diet? Have you changed what you're eating? Do you have any stress at home? All of these things could really impact your health, even if it's emotional stress. I think the last couple of years have really taught us that there are a lot of things that impact our health, external factors, not just things that we have medically going on with us. And when you talk to your doctor, be as specific as you can about each symptom, when it occurred, and how it affects you. And remember, don't be embarrassed. Your doctor has heard it all, and sometimes they've probably heard even worse. And if you're planning on discussing a personal topic or something you have difficulty verbalizing, one way to avoid nerves is to practice what you plan to say in advance. You can practice that in front of a mirror or with a friend or family member if you feel comfortable enough to do so. I also recommend trying to bring a piece of paper or notepad and a pen so that you can take notes during the appointment. You may also ask the doctor, nurse, or even pharmacist if you're at the pharmacy to write down instructions for you or to provide you with printed information about your disease, medication, or treatments. This will allow you to review information after the visit in the calm of your own home. You can also share these notes with friends, family, and caregivers to help them understand how they can best support you in managing and treating the disease or condition that you have. Some doctor's visits may make you feel emotional, stressed, rushed, flustered, you name it. It can be helpful to have a supportive family member, friend, or caregiver accompany you to appointments. They may also be able to help by taking notes or help you recall what was said during the visit. I know sometimes we get stuck on something a doctor says, our care provider says, and sometimes we miss some of those other points. So it's definitely helpful if you can to have somebody else there to help you remember and take notes if needed. And I also really want to highlight the idea of keeping an open mind, especially if you're in the process of being diagnosed or you know that there's something not quite right, but the doctor's not quite sure what's going on. So if you go to a doctor's appointment with a fixed idea about what's wrong, you and your doctor may overlook a key aspect of what could be causing the problem. So don't get so transfixed on it being necessarily one possible thing, because it could potentially be something else. Again, in the case of lupus, if you go in and you think it's lupus, the doctor might miss that it could be something else. Remember those symptoms that I shared, they really overlap with a lot of different diseases. And so it could very easily potentially be one of those other things. And then at the end of your appointment, that the end is just as important as the beginning. So remember to ask questions. So we talked about having a list of prioritized questions. So don't hesitate to let your doctor know about any questions or concerns you may have. It's best to be proactive in voicing questions and concerns as opposed to depending on your doctor to ask the right questions. If you have any doubts about something that the doctor has said, don't hesitate to continue asking questions until you feel satisfied with the answer. Now, I know a lot of people will say, I feel rushed, or, I didn't have enough time to get those in. So that's one why it's important to prioritize. So you want to have your most important questions first. Again, if you have a lot of questions, you may want to mention that when you schedule your appointment. You might be able to schedule a longer appointment, or your doctor may do office consultation. So not necessarily an appointment in the exam room, but maybe something in their office where you can have a more one-on-one conversation. Again, that's really going to be dependent upon the office and the doctor, but it's definitely a possibility. And then here's just a list of questions on this slide. I won't go through them, but some different questions that you might want to consider asking at your next doctor's appointment. And then before leaving, you can request a visit summary and a follow-up summary that goes over your instructions, what you're supposed to do following that appointment. I also recommend that if needed, you schedule any follow-up appointments before you leave. And so that also ensures that you're able to get the appointment time that you want. You already have it on the calendar and you don't forget it. And that way, like I said, it can be hard to get in with a doctor. So if you schedule it in advance, you're already on the calendar with them. Again, hopefully your doctor will go over what was discussed, go over decisions about treatments, if any were made, any suggested changes to your medications. Sometimes I know doctors are, as I mentioned, rushed and they might forget to do this. But you can also ask, sometimes doctors have a nurse, you can ask them to go over those instructions, again, give you that that print out, and then also go over when you should have that next appointment, and then kind of just what their expectations are. If you are starting a new treatment, you can ask what the expectations of how long it would take for that treatment to kick in until you feel better, and if you should not feel better in a certain amount of time, when you should give them a call. And then, as I mentioned, for future appointments, go ahead and make those follow-up appointments if needed. You won't forget to schedule them, and then you'll already have your choice of date and time on the calendar. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that I think it's always important to be an advocate for yourself. And so self-advocacy is super important. And by advocating for yourself, you enable your doctors to treat you effectively. And in order to give you the best care, your doctors need as much information as possible about what you're feeling and noticing in your body. You can empower family members, friends, employers, if you're comfortable, and healthcare providers to give you the support you need. And most people want to help, but they can only do so if they're clear about what you need. So ensure that your needs are being addressed. No one knows your body, your emotions, and your mental stresses as much as you do. And so that's why you're the best person to advocate for yourself. And if you don't feel heard by your doctor, take a deep breath and politely and firmly insist that your symptoms are real and you'd like further evaluation. We do have some additional resources available on our website. And then finally, I know a lot goes into preparing for your doctor's appointment. It's not only important to prepare before your doctor's appointment, but to be an active participant during and after your appointment so that you can get the care that you need. That care is so beneficial and important because it hopefully helps you to feel better in the end and manage whatever you have going on. So every doctor's appointment is your opportunity to explain and discuss your problems and concerns with someone whose job it is to listen and to help. The better prepared you are for the appointment, the better you'll feel about the experience and the closer you'll be to receiving an accurate and timely diagnosis, or the closer you'll be to better managing your disease. And then finally, as I close out today, here's some more information about how you can reach out to us. Also follow us on social media, which is a great way to stay updated on all of our programs, events, and services that I've mentioned. And I know Carla has been monitoring if we have any questions. But before I turn it back to her, I just want to thank you all for attending today. I'm so honored, and I want to thank Needy Meds for the opportunity as well.
Ashley, thank you so much for another wonderful presentation for our Needy Meds users. And for those of you that just saw that I did grab the screen back and you're looking at the picture of Ashley, don't worry, I will put the contact information for the Lupus Foundation of America up at the end of the presentation as well, as promised. And we are getting a lot of feedback and comments from our audience. And it's really interesting to see what part of your presentation resonates with people. And straight across the board, some people are really resonated with how important it is to be prepared before, those that appreciated how you can participate during, and for me and others that have already logged in, the after the doctor's appointment is the big thing. I can't tell everybody how many times I say thank you, and honestly, I'm eager to get out of there. And by the time I get out on the street or into my car or in that elevator, I have a half a dozen questions that I wish I should have asked right before I left. And usually those involved what Ashley pointed out. When is my next appointment? Do I have questions about the medication I took? So a huge thank you to Ashley. This is why, as you can see, we always ask Ashley to come back and do these presentations for the Needy Meds audience, because not only is the breadth and scope of information the Lupus Foundation of America has for those living with lupus, they also have tons of resources, information, and education about how we can all be empowered and educated healthcare consumers. And today's presentation was a perfect example of that. As Ashley said, I was monitoring questions as they came in, and we will get to that momentarily. For those of you that didn't remember how to submit questions, you can do that by typing them into that questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. I will also remind everybody that Needy Meds is here if one of the obstacles you're facing in taking care of yourself is being able to afford your medications or healthcare needs, which is so common. Please do turn to Needy Meds. And you can do that by visiting needymeds.org and checking out that healthcare savings tab that I pointed out in the beginning of the presentation. All of the categories next to those check marks on your slide, on the slide you're looking at, show you all of the categories that are under that healthcare cost savings tab. If you're interested in learning more, call our expert call center counselors, visit needymeds.org to read more about them, or join me for some of our upcoming Needy Meds webinars. And again, you can find those either under the Education tab, right next to that Healthcare Savings tab, or in the bottom right hand, the Calendar of Events. We do our best to offer monthly overview webinars, but we also pepper that Calendar of Events with very short webinars that do a deep dive into simply some of these healthcare savings resources. For example, if you look at that upcoming Calendar of Events, you will find webinars on all about patient assistance programs, healthcare savings with diagnosis-based assistance programs, or how to save using the Needy Meds drug discount card, for example. As promised, there is the contact information for the Lupus Foundation of America, and at the bottom, you will see the Needy Meds website, toll-free helpline, and my email address in the center. So let's get to some of those questions coming in. The first one, and you touched upon this, Ashley, but this is probably a question you get all the time, and I'm really glad an audience member asked this, because I always say this in webinars: if one person is thinking of a question, probably other people are as well. And this question, it also gives you, Ashley, I think, an opportunity to drive home a really important point, which is my provider is always in a rush during my appointment. So how can I get her or him to actually listen to my concerns. And I will mirror that sense and trading. We all have to deal with that. But I think we can all use some guidance. And how do we handle that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think we all really relate to that, right? So one thing to consider, if possible, I know it's hard when you're trying to schedule, for the new doctor, but one thing you can consider is to be the first appointment in first appointment of the day or the first appointment after lunch. Sometimes they're not behind at that point, so they might not be quite as rushed. But again, as I mentioned, it's really important to clearly communicate what you need when you're scheduling that appointment. So different types of visits have an assigned amount of time for the provider per patient. So by communicating your needs, they can schedule you for a longer appointment time. You could also ask if the doctor does any type of consultations in their office outside the exam room, as I mentioned. And that's, I would really recommend that, especially if you have a long list of topics or concerns to discuss. And so every office is different, but for instance, annual appointments typically are longer than regular checkups. Problem visits may be slotted for a certain amount of time, which may not be very long. So again, if you communicate that, hopefully you can get a little bit of longer appointment time. And then again, sometimes, I know me personally, I have some good luck with either having the first appointment of the day or the first appointment after lunch, because they haven't gotten behind from seeing other patients at that point.
Oh, that's a really good tip. I like that one. Thank you, Ashley, and thank you to our audience for participating with that great question. Another question that came in, actually, this was asked by more than one person, which is, when should I get a second opinion?
Oh, that's a good question. That's tough. And so, ultimately, I would say only you can decide if you should get a second opinion. If you're not comfortable with that doctor or you don't feel like they're listening to you, that might be a good reason to get a second opinion. Some common reasons that I would suggest to get a second opinion would be, like I said, if you're having trouble talking to your doctor, if you don't feel comfortable discussing sensitive topics with your doctor, I mean, you should definitely feel like you can be open with your doctor. So if you feel like they judge you or they don't listen, you might want to consider changing and seeing if you can find someone that you work better with. You might also get a second opinion if your doctor is not a specialist for your condition. You also might consider a second opinion if you want to explore other treatment options that your doctor hasn't provided. Perhaps you've done your research, right, as we mentioned, and you're really gung-ho about trying treatment A, but it's not a treatment that your doctor wants to try or will even explain why it's not an option. Again, you might want to seek out a second opinion. And then also along the same lines with treatment, if they're recommending a treatment that's risky or something that involves surgery or could have lifelong consequences, that's certainly something that you would want to consider getting a second opinion for.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And again, thank you to our audience member for asking that question. We're going to get to one more question. We do our best to keep the question segment brief. So if you did ask a question that we didn't get the chance to answer, as I said, we will follow up with you by email, but don't hesitate to reach out to either the Lupus Foundation of America or NeedyMeds at the contact information on your screen. So the question we're going to wrap up with today is, how can I get names of my previous doctors so I can get my medical records? I mean, I could ask that same question by myself, and their audience member is saying, I've seen so many doctors over the years, I forget their names. That has to be a common problem.
It is, and unfortunately, there are only a couple of things that I can think of off the top of my head, and it's not a fix all, but I think that it kind of goes to show the importance of why it's important to keep copies or records of your medical history. So again, as I mentioned, having that binder, if you keep that of doctor's appointment visits or even your explanation of benefits from the insurance company, they have a lot of provider information. So moving forward, that's something you could do to keep track of that, right? But if you remember who you've had with your health insurance, such as the carrier, you can try calling their customer service and asking for copies of your explanation of benefits, or like I said, EOBs. And those EOBs should include the provider's names. I know years ago, and still to this day, there are still some of those health maintenance organization, the HMO type health plans. And with those, sometimes you need referrals to see a specialist. You can call your primary care doctor and see if they have a record of who all they've made referrals to. That would be another good way to see if you can get previous doctors' names. Outside of that, you can ask family members if they remember who you've seen. I know me personally, I don't remember a doctor's name, but I remember maybe the practice, or I remember the location of where that appointment was. And the internet is a great tool if you have access to that, as we're on this webinar today, to try to look up that practice name, or even kind of Googling where it's at. And seeing if you can pull up a name that way as well. But there's not really one great way to get that previous list. But it's, like I said, it shows the importance of tracking it moving forward. And those are just some ideas of how you can maybe get some of those previous names.
That's super helpful. And I just realized that something, again, moving forward that may be able to help our audience members who's dealing with this, being able to remember previous doctors and then get your medical records. If you go to needymeds.org, literally on the homepage on the right-hand side, you will see a box that has a link to something called MyLinks. MyLinks is a free app that allows you to gather, manage, and share all of your medical records from one secure location. So if you're interested in that, read a little bit more about it on needymeds.org and check out our upcoming webinars. Again, you can find those on the calendar of events, bottom right hand of needymeds.org, or under that education tab. You will find upcoming MyLinks webinars, and I think they're pretty brief. So if you're interested in a free app that will help you manage, track, and share your health records, join us for that. We'd love to have you. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's presentation. A huge thank you to my friend and colleague Ashley for taking time out of her day to share her expertise with the Needy Meds audience. We have already convinced her to come back later in the year. So although you can find a recording of this webinar and other webinars presented for the Needy Meds audience by the Lupus Foundation of America on our YouTube channel, you can also find some other upcoming live presentations by the Lupus Foundation of America on our calendar events. So check those out. A big thank you also to our audience for taking time out of their busy days to learn how we can all make the most out of our upcoming medical appointments. And please go ahead and share all the resources that you learned today with your friends, neighbors, loved ones, patients, and clients. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.